This episode is sponsored by Balsamiq. Founders, product managers, marketers, and developers have always had great product ideas, but lacked a quick and easy way to express them. Enter Balsamiq Wireframes. You just drag, drop, and arrange pre-made UI elements on the screen. You'll be amazed at the great screens you'll be able to create in just a few minutes. Not sure where to start? They can also teach you. Bring your wireframes to your collaborators and see how quickly you'll get on the same page and reduce risk by testing them on potential customers. Balsamiq Wireframes is available on the web as a desktop app or integrated with Google Drive, Confluence, and Jira. Try it free today at balsamiq.com. Hello, everyone. This is your host, Akhil Jabbar, and welcome back to another episode of SaaS District. In today's episode, we'll be talking about designing SaaS products that deliver better user value and drive user growth. Today, we have our guest, Peter Loving, joining us. Peter is a software designer, coach, and consultant who works with SaaS companies to build better products, making UI and UX improvements that drive growth and wow users. He's the founder of UserActive, an agency that designs meaningful tech products. They are inspired by a mission to help tech founders build products that enrich the life of users, doing this by applying critical thinking, creative talent, and product strategy to solve real business challenges. So welcome, Peter. Super excited to have you on the SaaS District show today.
Hi, Akhil. Thanks for having me. I'm a fan of the podcast, so excited to be here too.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm actually also a fan of your Facebook group. I'm part of that. So, been part of that for a while. So glad we can finally connect.
Great. Yeah. Great. Yeah. I didn't realize you were in there yet. So, we'll have to do a live and get you in there too, to promote the SaaS District podcast. Huh?
Sure. Absolutely. That'd be great. So, a lot of people listening in, we're SaaS founders, SaaS marketers, designers. That's your expertise. I'd love to learn more. Maybe let's start off with, if I'm looking to build out a new design for my dashboard or my SaaS product, can you walk us through how does the fundamentals of the process of creating a value-based product dashboard look like for you?
Yeah, dashboards are an interesting topic. It's one of the things that we look at quite often as an area to make good improvements in when starting on a new SaaS project that we're designing. And one of the reasons for this is that it's usually one of the main screens that users encounter when they sign up for a SaaS. So it plays a really big role in the first impression, and often I find it's overlooked. So what we like to do is rethink that dashboard to make sure that it represents an overview of the product, right? So what we're looking to do there is provide the user with an overview of account activity, but also highlight all of the value in this product, right? There's a lot of value usually in a software product that can be hidden or buried within menus. But surfacing information on the dashboard is a great way to let users who are new to the product see it and become aware of it for the first time. So the process for this, we usually go through 4 or 5 steps, but we review. First of all, we look at user profiles, right? So usually software doesn't just have one user profile. It will have typically 4 or 5 different kinds of users. So we think about each of these separately. We want to make sure that we've considered their needs and requirements for their specific role that they have with the software. And the next thing we want to think about is a contextual experience. So how do we make this dashboard contextual so that each time you log in, you're seeing something new, an update, it's changing, it feels like a living and breathing experience because you're now seeing activity from other people on your team, what's been happening since the last time you logged in. So that's quite a nice thing that brings users coming back, brings them back for more sessions because sometimes they'll log in and see updates that way too. We look at how the navigation supports user journeys and gets users quite often those journeys start from the dashboard. So we'll design out goal-based navigation. And then we also show key metrics that support a user's desired outcome. So every user signs up for a SaaS product with an ideal outcome in mind. And one of the great things that you can do on the dashboard is keep reminding them of how they're doing against that ideal outcome. Are they reaching? Are they hitting it? And if they are, the feedback can be really great because it reinforces the fact that this product is achieving those outcomes that they were looking for. So that's one way we help show ROI, like right there in the dashboard. So it's quite a powerful screen, and it's one I like to talk about a lot for those reasons. And we just, those are the key things we think about, and then we go through a process of redesigning that experience, what it should look like, and how it should, be.
Yeah, it sounds counterintuitive, but I like that, right? When you sign in, you actually probably people try to minimize, right, as much as possible, maybe on that dashboard, but they try to hide everything in the screens, and they think people, should be able to figure out. But yeah, I think if you have it laid out nicely when you first log in, nicely organized, nicely easy to follow, and having that some kind of progress bar or checkbox, is that what you like to have there, or what do you suggest on people to show progress?
Well, yeah, that might relate to onboarding, right? So say you have a flow that shows progress of the onboarding of a new user. That might be something that we show, but when thinking about the dashboard, I like to think of it as a kind of utilitarian standalone screen, right? Mm-hmm. We might have something that relates to onboarding. But did you mean a progress bar relating to some metrics or okay?
Yeah, if somebody, who actually uses the tool, who completes it, right? You mentioned that helps, improve ROI. Is there something you like for people to help visualize that they're completing it and using the tool as it should be?
Yeah, you can show, there are really neat things you can do with that. So you can show progress. Two examples that spring to mind for this is one where we work with a renting software for landlords. This one shows how much of all of the properties in their portfolio for that month, where they are in terms of rent paid and rent outstanding for the month. So you kind of get a progress in terms of a monetary progress that way. And another good example of this was a software that it was called AdZoomer, and it basically improves the efficiency of ads. Of PPC and social ad spend. It optimizes those campaigns, and then it actually shows on the dashboard time and money saved by using AdZoomer. So it's just a really neat way to give that feedback, and it validates the product over and over again in the user's mind.
Nice. I like those examples. And when it comes to UI, UX, and product design, what's kind of the relationship between these two? And then from there, how do you bridge that gap when actually building for the end user, right? Because as a designer, you like to build something that looks good, nice UI, seems like good UX, but then it may not be, right for the end user. How do you bridge that gap?
Yeah, so the relation between UI and UX and product design, the way I think of that is UI and UX describes the interface and experience design that can be largely attributed to web design in general. Okay, it can be even broader than web design, like machine interfaces with anything with a screen, right? Mm-hmm. You can get designers that might categorize themselves as UI and UX designers, but they might just focus on things like websites and landing pages, these kind of elements. And I see product design as a broader discipline, which is largely associated with problem solving in the context of meeting a market need. So you're coming to the market with you're observing problems, you're seeing problems, and thinking about how you might solve them, and what that product might be like, how it might come to life. And that's quite a big process that actually has quite a few more disciplines involved in it. So I'd kind of see any good product designer, digital product designer, will have UI and UX skills, but I think they'll also have some other skills in their kind of how would you describe that? In a toolbox, right? And they would be around understanding how to deliver value to a user of a product. What are the tasks these users need to perform? What's the best way to enable them to perform them? How to deliver value, whether that's saving time, reducing cost, making it easier to complete work. So I see that's maybe where how the disciplines relate. But then you also mentioned bridging the gap when building for the end user, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the part where you're really understanding the value that you're delivering and then shaping an experience that delivers that value. It can be hard to articulate, but I guess it's more of a functional kind of functional design process.
Right. So someone like more product design is more in the shoes of the user, understands kind of a more of a holistic level, and then maybe the UI UX designer who can take that kind of thinking and map, and then what is the problem we're solving, and then build that out into actual design, right? And then kind of work together, right? Versus all in one.
Yeah, thinking, and you find that the labels are quite interchangeable. You get product designers and UI UX designers considering them that to be the same thing, and in a lot of cases it is. But I just think product design as a trend has grown dramatically over the last say 5 to 10 years in tech. Yeah. Whereas back when I studied product design in university, but that was physical products. We were designing things like iPhones or consumer gadgets, and that the disciplines from that field have translated over to tech. That's how I've kind of observed it. Cool. In these kind of recent years.
And when it comes to tech and SaaS specifically, what have you seen typically as areas that when you log into a SaaS companies UI UX, you look at their dashboard or their business, what are things that you see that are quick areas of improvement when building out their designs, and maybe you'd recommend to them that will generate the quickest results? And maybe so people listening in, maybe they can try it themselves.
Yeah. So one of the things that people say to me a lot, so if you have a SaaS, you're a SaaS founder or working in a SaaS team, you've been working on your product quite intensively and maybe over a long period of time. So one of the things that I hear SaaS founders saying to me when we start our conversations is that they would like a fresh pair of eyes on the product.
Exactly.
And I think the reason for that is because when you're working so deeply in something for a long time, you lose that perspective, the ability to see the product the way that a brand new user seeing it for the first time sees it. So it helps to have conversations with prospects or new users, people like that who are having their first impression of the product and getting their insight and observing, their experience or their reaction. And then areas that I often see that have a lot of room for improvement do relate also to that first experience. So onboarding is a big one here. And it's talked about a lot in SaaS, but there are common issues that I see quite a lot. Like one is just reducing friction in the onboarding experience. If you have something like a complex integration, how it's about stepping back, observing the journey of what needs to be done, and then trying to simplify it and reduce any effort, or reduce as much of the effort or thinking the user has to do to get through this process into experiencing the product. So that's quite a common one. And other tricks that we do in onboarding are, at the very beginning of the process, psychologically frame the experience in terms of the future benefits that this user is going to get. So say they sign up, they start their onboarding. you might ask one or two questions to find a bit of information out about this user, what their needs are, what kind of category they are. And then you might just highlight key features or desired results. Hey, welcome to this CRM. Here are 3 of the big features that we're really proud of and the kind of results you can get. What happens when we do that? We're kind of like framing psychologically a future benefit, which the concept of it is that it helps them when they get to the friction part of onboarding. It helps push them through that because they've got a driver, they've got a bit more motivation. So we kind of front load it with value, push them through friction, and then at the end, we just like re-emphasize or celebrate, that experience that they've gotten through, and then start trying to deliver that value as quickly as possible. So I think onboarding is usually a big one, and it's probably one of the ones to hit first, because if you can have a low resource requirement but big improvement in the onboarding, you can really impact metrics or conversions like your free trial to upgrade, things like this. You can see a big reward in them. So sometimes they're some of the kind of lower impact, I should say lower resource things, but they have a big impact.
So when it comes to talking about that point, which is quantifying it and building metrics and measuring it, besides making the product a little bit more intuitive, easier to use, by making these improvements on onboarding and product design, other than better customer experience, how do you see it kind of increase retention and maybe reduce churn as a part of the overall system there?
Yeah. In terms of the kind of metrics that you measure, the tools that you use for it.
Or maybe if you can share any, experiences or, things that you've seen with SaaS companies by making some changes, and how has that impacted, churn or retention? Yeah.
Well, I have a really good example of that. This was a CRM that we redesigned, and we started with the dashboard. This is one of the reasons that I speak about the power of the dashboard. We saw that, we noticed that the dashboard had quite a weak design. It didn't really show information that was very valuable to the user. It kind of had, and this can be quite common, I think, for listeners who have a technical product or a technical team. If you feel that your dashboard is kind of just a place where a few pieces of data have been dumped that are from the product but haven't really been thought about deeply, we had that kind of dashboard experience to redesign. And what we did was rethink about it in the process that I mentioned earlier, and monitored the results. Once we rolled out the new design, we monitored the results, and we actually impacted about 700K of pounds. This is British pounds, right? In the difference of upgrades over the next 2-3 year period. Because what we started observing was that we increased the amount of free trial to paid conversions by 46%, which was pretty impressive.
Yeah,
it was more than I expected. And when we measured the average contract value of the user accounts was like £3,000. The lifetime value was around 12,000. And once we did the maths on that increase, it came up to like a really, really big number. So it kind of validated the work, and from then on, it's been a case of, okay, where else can we make improvements in the product that are going to have that kind of impact?
Nice. And can you share for listeners listening in who want to run a similar experiment, what are some tools that you guys use, analytics or KPIs or metrics that you guys keep track of and measure to see what the real impact is for the customer growth from the changes you're making, right? Like I know from a website perspective, there's a lot of conversion rate optimization tools you can use. How does it work on this side?
Yeah, it's pretty well for this example I just described. The team actually built custom analytics into their software. So I find that can be pretty common with companies we're working with. They will have just built a way to track metrics that matter to them, and they'll have an admin dashboard that they use. So we'll discuss some metrics that they can track. Otherwise, it would be something like Mixpanel or Heap, and we've even seen it's done with Google Analytics. But the kind of metrics, they're actually, sometimes people expect complicated answers to this, but they're actually quite simple metrics, right? They're like conversion rate, free trial to paid. They might be, we track things like utilization. So how many times are users logging in and how long are their sessions over that period? We might track some behaviors like how long does it take to invite additional users or seats to their account? And if they do that, typically how many are added? And then when we're designing user journeys or flows, it would be looking at the kind of goal-based data, like how many users complete the goal or complete the journey, how much time that takes, and how many drop off, where do they drop off in that process? So yeah, it's those kind of metrics. And then obviously you've got your classic SaaS metrics like MRR, net new MRR, churn, lifetime value. And when you start to calculate using those metrics with the data that you're measuring, that's when you can start to see the impact of design work, start monitoring that impact.
Right. And in terms of on the usage side, are you using a tool like Mixpanel, or is there something else you recommend?
Yeah, Mixpanel or Heap.
Was your favorite? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just the two kind of, I guess they're the industry leading ones. Pretty good. Yeah.
Where do you think kind of going forward into the near future, looking forward, what do you think will be some big areas of changes in UX design? And I don't know if it's AI, or maybe what are some more important skills that designers should be learning now to be ready for the future?
Yeah, now design systems are like the hot topic in product design, and I think they'll become more sophisticated. But learning how to use them. So I work with a lot of designers and see a variety of methods of working. We exclusively use Figma now, and Figma's pretty hot as well in the industry. So most designers are using Figma or thinking about moving over to it. And just getting really good with using components and design systems. Systems that also have layouts that are defined. So when you start moving your the Figma components around, elements within a layout, it rearranges and adjusts. So you kind of have this fluid design system. So we're starting to do that, and it really helps to keep things consistent. And it definitely helps when you're handing off to developers. And I just think design systems will get more and more sophisticated. They'll potentially have more code behind them, more front-end code. They might be integrated a bit more with JavaScript libraries. And I think, we're seeing in the industry the gap between design and development closing a bit, right? We're seeing a lot of no-code apps. Right. And just from observing my Facebook group, the SaaS founders group, there's like no-code apps launching every day. I've seen just hundreds this year. So I think that's going to become quite sophisticated to the point where the crossover will get wider and wider, and you'll be working with design and code a bit more integrated. But definitely, I think things that excite me or seem quite futuristic are how interface design will relate to virtual reality. As we get more kind of virtual spaces, how elements will be designed for those kind of experiences.
Right.
Branded experiences too in those spaces. So that will be interesting.
Yeah. Exciting times, right? The metaverse coming out. Yeah. Cool. Peter, what are some, if I'm a SaaS founder, we always, maybe we don't know where to start, right? We're looking from scratch, or we're trying to improve our design. So we look at, some of our competitors or other SaaS companies for inspiration. What are maybe some of your top 3 or 5, maybe favorite SaaS companies that you love, their design, their UI that you admire? Maybe suggest some founders to check out and get some inspiration from.
Yeah. 3 that I really love. We've been looking at a few recently, and ones that jump out are Product Board. And I think for Product Board, they almost need to show great UI and UX, because they're, it's a platform for product management and everything around managing your own SaaS product. So they'd want to be leaders in leading in terms of great design and product management, but they certainly do a great job. Definitely a really kind of modern, friendly, light interface that has so many different interactions that are all in context of what you're doing. So it's really interesting to see how they treat different interactions depending on where you are. And what you can do. So I'd definitely say Product Board. I think another great one is Airtable. That's really popular now. People even building apps with Airtable. So that's got a lot of hidden elements that are you only see them when you need them, or when you're interacting with a certain field. And every different field type has a really cool UI of its own that's just perfect for what you're doing there. So if you want, these are really good examples of if you have a complex product and you want to see how a great product team thinks about the very details of different interactions, these are great products to take a look at, take a free trial and play around with.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Airtable. Airtable's great.
Airtable's really neat because at face value, it doesn't look massively complex. It looks like a spreadsheet. But the more you get into it, you realize, oh my God, the power behind it and the amount of interface elements that you have to work with. And I think a third one a good example would be Notion, because Notion has a very kind of stripped back, minimal white feel. It almost looks understated. But when you start, the first time you start using Notion, it becomes apparent that everything you're doing is right there within the document workspace. So you almost have a blank canvas. And even the onboarding is on a new sheet, a document. And then you realize that you can start working right in that onboarding guideline instruction. Before you know it, you can have a project that you've built right on that sheet. So every kind of sheet is a workspace of its own. It feels like the interface is embedded right there in the product. The way they do that is really neat. It's really cool.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Notion. Actually, I started using it about, I think, like 2 or 3 years ago when they were kind of getting hot. And then I think I hit a roadblock and I didn't really want to pay for it because they had like 1,000. You can only use like 1,000 blocks or something like that. But recently I came back. Somebody's been mentioning it recently, and I came back, and now they have unlimited pages and blocks for I like to just organize my thoughts and keep things. But yeah, I love the power of it. So definitely recommend people to check out Notion if you're not already using it. Do you use it yourself, or what's your favorite?
No, see that those 3 are ones that I don't actually use them day to day, but quite often I'm reviewing, or in our team here, we're reviewing, well-known SaaS products, looking for the, examples of leading trends in the industry. But Notion is very broad in what it can do. But I tend to use tools that have very specific tasks for us within our work here. So, I'm using Teamwork for project management.
Okay.
And I've even heard of people using Notion for project management. It can do all of these things.
That's right.
But yeah, I think of those three, I think I like them all equally. I think they're all great for different reasons.
Yeah, I agree. Cool. This has been fantastic, Peter. So we're going to get to the fun part of the interview, which is more of the personal rapid fire questions. So maybe just quick minute, share a quick background. What's been your background, past ventures up until why you decided to build UserActive.
So like I mentioned earlier, I've always been interested in design, and I studied product design at university. I freelanced for a bunch of years, worked at a number of different agencies in London, got some exposure to working on SaaS projects there. Over the years, my freelancing kind of grew, and I decided to start trying to form an agency, which is a typical route, but it's very difficult to go. It's a very different experience being a freelancer or an agency. Mm-hmm. And this was a full service agency in London. We did just heaps of websites. We did software. We designed even websites for the government. We designed the Prime Minister's personal website in the UK. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So we had some really cool projects, but after maybe 5 years running that agency, I decided to wind it down and rethink the agency and focus really on my passion, which was product design. So that's how I got back to just focusing on product design. And I that's when I founded UserActive to just literally focus on SaaS products and designing great UX and UI for SaaS.
And how's that transition, right? Because I guess, there's quite a few, agency owners who listen in as well. Maybe they're more broad and they think about niching down to a certain, type of industry or certain just one type of offering. How has that affected, one, maybe your own mental health and how you came to, showed up to work, and then how did that affect your overall business, would you say?
Yeah, It really helps. I mean, I didn't find it sustainable to have a full service digital agency where you're changing every project, your kind of whole mental space onto something new or potentially different.
Right.
So that takes a lot of adjustment, and it's just very inefficient too. You can't really build a scalable service. So for niching, for the people who are listening, I think people are frightened of niching when they first do it. But once you make the jump, you have a lot of work to do to kind of get traction in your niche. But actually, that's how you're going to grow. And once you kind of get confirmation of that, you realize that niching into something like SaaS is actually still a massive niche. So even within SaaS, you kind of need to go deeper, right? What can you get known for? What is the thing that you can focus on there? So I would highly recommend niching down on the industry as well as the service. And that's one of the things I've been doing with UserActive is we've kind of productized the model that we run, which is just delivering design sprints. So we do bi-weekly design sprints. There's a design stand-up every 2 weeks, and we run a sprint where we manage a kind of design backlog and a roadmap, and then we do the sprint, deliver and review the work, and then we run on to the next sprint. So it's a very repeatable, and it not only makes it easier for us to manage this kind of workflow, but it's a lot easier for the client to check in, follow what's being done, and the experience is better for them. So for any agencies listening, I'd highly recommend that. And the beauty of working in SaaS for me is obviously I've seen how software companies run that subscription model and how they operate as a product. So there have been some transferable learnings that I could bring into the service, industry world. And I think there's a lot that, the service people can benefit from in that alone.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, even though, I started in internet-based businesses, buying online websites, but then, niching down and, going now, B2B SaaS companies, so B2B, that narrows it down. And then, we have a specific revenue range, right? We invest and do consulting with, 500K to 5 million, and that's it, right? So it sounds like, scary because you're saying no to all these other opportunities. But it ends up being a blessing in disguise, right? Because then you attract exactly who you want to work with and who you actually help, and ends up being better fit for everybody in the long term.
Yeah, and two other things that happen is that like you get all this transferable knowledge and skill from every single client.
That's right.
So each new client benefits from this because you've got examples and references you can draw from. And then the other thing is that the opportunities that you said no to, you start to realize how, previously when you were saying yes to them, they were actually like just pulling you in different directions, creating kind of a lot of conflict in the way you work and, mentally adjusting to each project. So those two things start to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
It sounds like we both experienced those. And
for sure. Yeah. I think everybody goes down the agency route. They want to do everything and anything, but they quickly realize that it's not sustainable, right?
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. Cool, Peter. What's one piece of advice you wish you had known and would tell your, let's say, your 25-year-old self if you can go back in time?
I've got so many actually, but definitely one of them is to be more confident in the dream or vision that you have for what you want to do. Develop more confidence about it and commit more to it. So one of the things that happened to me, and I think it happens a lot to service-based businesses, is that they sometimes think the grass is greener on the product side, and they want to move over to SaaS or launch a SaaS. So there's a temptation to do that. But I found that sticking with what I am trained and have become really great at has had other benefits. One of them is that I get to work on, hundreds of different SaaS products, and the variety and the insight into the different industries is just a total bonus. So just develop the confidence and commitment more. And one of the things that helped me do that is recently this year is to join a coaching academy. So I joined an agency coaching academy, which has really helped. It's built me in those two areas. So I think fundamental is getting kind of advice coaching and guidance. I think that's a really great way to build up the commitment, confidence, and focus on what you do.
And maybe tied to that adds to that answer of how you said, what are some of the biggest challenges you're currently facing in order to continue to grow UserActive? Meaning, what keeps you up at night, or what was it that, maybe, trigger that you might have to, get some guidance or join this community and get some help?
Yeah. So things that might keep me up recently is, the talent, finding talent, and also, keeping talented designers engaged, excited, and on board with the mission that you're doing. That's quite challenging because I think recently there's been a big ton of shift in the way people are working. There's a lot, I was advertising recently in the market for designer, and tons of people are job hunting. There's a lot of vacancies. It seems to me to be this way. And I don't know if it's because COVID has changed, more people are working virtually. There are more opportunities to work virtually now. So I think that's shifted the market a bit. And the demand for design, I think, has been increasing. So it's quite challenging, especially if you're a small agency. You might have you might be competing against VC-backed tech companies, and so that can be quite a challenge.
Yeah.
So I definitely say hiring and retaining great talent, and then for me, generally, it's like the complexity of clients' products. We might be running sprints on 3 different products at a given time, and there's a lot of complexity in each. So I'll have little problems that we're solving, or design interactions that are going through my head, and sometimes they might, nuances of these projects might stay on my mind for a bit. And the other thing might just be your general day-to-day, like managing things like marketing and lead gen on top of all of your day-to-day work. So I think these are pretty common.
Yeah. So are you guys hiring right now? Locally, or are you virtual? Are you all remote?
A combination really, but just hired a new designer recently, and potentially in Q1 2022 we'll be hiring another one. So
cool. All right. So if anybody listening in who's in the Barcelona area or possibly remote, visit, reach out to Peter and see it might be a good fit. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, we're always looking for people that have specifically worked on SaaS, really good UI, UX designers who've got 3 to 5 years of designing SaaS.
Perfect. Sounds good. Peter, when it comes to resources, who or what are some of the best resources? This can be books, it can be people, mentors, or maybe people you follow in the space who you'd say have been instrumental to your success over these last few years. Yeah,
there's quite a few. In the space, in the SaaS space or the kind of agency space. So I always find myself following these two. And one's to stay on top in the trends in SaaS, and one's to almost self-improvement and development in running service-based businesses.
Either or, whoever has been, who you think has been most influential.
Yeah. Well, for me, really good books that have made a big impact on me. Mike Michalowicz has written some great books, and he wrote one called The Pumpkin Plan, which was all about growing how farmers grow the biggest pumpkins in these kind of like farming competitions. And they do it by cutting off all the smaller pumpkins and letting all of the energy go to, supporting the growth of the biggest pumpkin on the vine. And he made an analogy to business, especially for you could think of this as an analogy to software features, being more selective with features rather than developing lots. But the analogy for me is, honing your service into one service that really satisfies a market need and not trying to do too many different offerings. And he had another great one called Fix This Next, which is awesome. So it kind of gives you step-by-step what to work on your business. Built to Sell is one that was really great for me, which is another service-based model. And there's a book I really like called Anything You Want by Derek Sivers.
Okay.
Which is about shaping your business into something that fits you. It doesn't have to be a mold of what a corporate image might be. Of how you might perceive your business, what it needs to be. You can shape it to be something that will fit.
That's a fantastic book, right? A little book, but super powerful. I'm a big fan of Derek Sivers. Yeah,
you know it. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
So those are ones that I've particularly enjoyed myself.
Cool. Yeah, those are fantastic, resources for people to check out. And I love that thinking, right? Of like, people think, the more the better, and you spread yourself out and spread your energy, your time. But the idea of focusing on, one or two things and giving that all your energy, I think there's immense power, right? And you'll see I think typically if you invest in one thing, you'll see kind of the exponential versus, kind of half-assing, a bunch of little things. And then, it just never goes anywhere, right?
Yeah. And I think that there's quite a lot of business books with this topic. There's
the one thing.
Yeah. And you see this theme. Once you become, aware of this theme, you see it in a lot of spaces. And then, after you've come across a lot, you're like, of course, this is a no-brainer, right? This is like, you need to. But I think what people struggle with is finding the thing that will be successful. So they're trying lots at the beginning. This can be the same with launching MVPs for a SaaS idea or trying out new features in the CRM that you're building, this kind of thing.
Peter, what does success mean to you today? Whether that's personally, business, financial, life, there's no right answer.
Yeah, so I think definitely happiness. So I'm trying to build a business that I will enjoy working in for the long term. So that's the beauty of finding a passion for design, is that running a design agency, I'm always engrossed in the work I enjoy. So I want to kind of make that sustainable, do that for the long term and be happy, a manageable lifestyle that's not going to be overwhelming or, where I feel like the workload is just too great, which can happen in the agency world. Yeah, and maintaining that, creating a place that people really enjoy working in, and a team that people love to work in, with a strong culture, and delivering value to the people that are it's our mission to serve. So there's a great sense of accomplishment and satisfaction when we hand off designs. Later we see them released into a product, and it's like, wow, that process where we've worked on this thing, it's been hard work, it's a lot of problem solving. We see it live, we see, how people are benefiting from it, and we see it in the real world. It's a really satisfying feeling. So, just managing to do more of these kind of things that are rewarding.
Love it. Love it. You're actually seeing the fruit of your ideas and your concept and your hard work actually being used in the real world. That's awesome. Yeah. Cool. Thank you so much, Peter. This has been great. I really appreciate you jumping on SaaS District Show today. Final question, anything you want to add, or where can founders get in touch with you and learn more about you and UserActive?
Yeah, sure. So our website is useractive.io. I also have a field guide, which is called Software Users Love, the field guide. That just talks about how to apply UI and UX to design features, user journeys, and flows that can make a big impact on the metrics that matter in a SaaS product. So if anyone's listening and is thinking about how they can introduce product improvements that will drive growth, and you'd like a copy of that, you can just email me at peter@useractive.io, and I'll send that over to you. And I suppose the Facebook group as well, which is SaaS Founders Build and Scale Facebook group. I think there's around nearly 11,000 SaaS founders in there. So you can also join that if you're looking for a group to connect with other founders.
Okay, awesome. We'll add your email, Facebook group, and that link to the show notes for people to check out. And please join the Facebook group. It'd be great to see you guys there. Thank you, Peter, once again. Appreciate you jumping on.
Thanks, Akhil. Thanks for having me. I've really enjoyed it. Cheers.
Thank you all for watching this episode and joining SaaS District today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for future episodes where we interview top leaders in the SaaS industry. If you're a SaaS company looking to grow and unlock the true value of your business, get in touch with us at Horizon Capital, and myself or one of our consultants will provide a free assessment to help you get there and hit your goals. If you have any feedback or suggestions for this podcast, please comment down below and help us improve our content for you all. Thanks again, and see you on the next one.